Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. And let me ask you something that might change your day. What if I told you that a simple penny from 1989, something you might have tossed into a jar or spent on candy, could actually be worth $17 million? Yes, you heard that right. $17 million for a coin that was minted just decades ago. A coin that millions of Americans handled without giving it a second thought. A coin that could still be hiding in your collection, your grandmother's piggy bank, or even between your couch cushions right now. The 1989 Lincoln Penny holds secrets that most people walk past every single day. And today, we're diving deep into why this particular year has collectors, investors, and treasure hunters checking every single penny they come across with magnifying glasses and pure desperation in their eyes. This isn't just about pocket change anymore. This is about life-changing wealth hiding in plain sight. And before we're done here, you're going to know exactly what to look for. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a penny be worth millions? Let me tell you, the 1989 Lincoln Penny isn't just any ordinary coin. And when you discover the rare error that makes it so valuable, you'll understand why auction houses have seen fierce bidding wars, why collectors have paid astronomical prices, and why finding one of these could mean you never have to worry about money again. The highest recorded auction price for a specific 1989 Lincoln Penny era reached an absolutely mind-blowing $17 million. And that's not a typo. That's not an exaggeration. That's the real deal, verified by numismatic experts and documented in auction records that made headlines across the collecting world. But here's where it gets even more exciting. Stick with me till the very end of this video, because after we uncover everything about this 1989 treasure, I'm going to reveal details about a 1985 Lincoln Penny that's worth even more, and then, saving the absolute best for last, a 1970 penny that will absolutely blow your mind with its value. But I won't spoil those numbers just yet. You'll have to stay tuned to find out exactly how much those incredible coins are worth. Now, let's talk about 1989, a year when the world was changing rapidly. The Berlin Wall was coming down, the internet was just beginning to take shape, and the Philadelphia and Denver mints were churning out billions of Lincoln pennies for everyday circulation. Pennies that were meant to be spent on newspapers, gumballs, and phone calls. The U.S. Mint produced over 7.2 billion pennies that year between the two facilities, making 1989 one of the highest production years in American coinage history. Which makes you wonder, how could something so common become so incredibly rare and valuable? The answer lies in the errors, my friends, the beautiful, incredible, life-changing errors that occur during the minting process. You see, when you're producing billions of coins, mistakes happen, and while quality control catches most of them, a few special specimens slip through the cracks and make it into circulation. And these are the ones that become legendary. The 1989 Lincoln Penny that reached that $17 million valuation features what's known as a double-die obverse error combined with an off-center strike and wrong planchet composition. Essentially, this coin had not one, not two, but three major errors all on the same specimen, making it virtually unique in the numismatic world. The double-die error means that Lincoln's profile, the date, and the motto, "In God We Trust," were struck twice with a slight misalignment, creating a doubled appearance that's visible to the naked eye but becomes absolutely stunning under magnification, where you can see the clear separation between the primary and secondary strikes. This doubling appears most prominently on the lettering and on Lincoln's eye and ear, giving the coin a distinctive shadow effect that immediately signals to experts that they're looking at something special. But the errors don't stop there. This particular coin also features an off-center strike of approximately 15 to 20%, meaning the die didn't come down perfectly centered on the planchet, resulting in part of the design being cut off while leaving a blank crescent of copper visible on one side, and off-center strikes are highly collectible on their own, but when combined with other errors, the value skyrockets exponentially. And here's the third error that makes this coin truly one of a kind. It was struck on the wrong planchet entirely. Instead of being struck on the standard copper-plated zinc planchet that was used for pennies from 1982 onward, this particular 1989 penny was struck on a leftover copper planchet from before the transition, giving it the heavier weight and different composition that pre-1982 pennies had, and this wrong planchet error is incredibly rare because by 1989, those old copper planchets should have been long gone from the mint facilities. When you combine all three of these errors, the double die obverse, the offset or strike, and the wrong planchet composition, you have a coin that's essentially a perfect storm of minting mistakes, and it's this combination that drove the price to $17 million when it appeared at auction. The story of how this coin was discovered is equally fascinating. It was found by a casual collector who was going through rolls of pennies looking for wheat pennies and other common varieties when something about this particular 1989 penny caught their eye. The doubling was immediately visible, but they didn't realize the full extent of the errors until they had it professionally examined. And when the grading service confirmed not just the double die, but also the wrong planchet composition, the coin world absolutely erupted with excitement. Authentication and grading are crucial when it comes to error coins of this magnitude. And this particular specimen was graded by PCGS, the professional coin grading service, receiving a grade of MS 67 red, which means it was in near-perfect mint state condition with full original red copper color and virtually no signs of wear or environmental damage. And maintaining that level of preservation is remarkable for a coin that was actually released into circulation, even if only briefly. The auction that ultimately sold this coin for $17 million attracted bidders from around the world. Private collectors, investment firms, and museums all wanted to own this piece of numismatic history, and the bidding quickly escalated beyond anyone's expectations, breaking record after record until the final hammer price was announced and left the entire room in stunned silence. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. Experts believe that there could be more 1989 error pennies still out there, perhaps not with the exact same combination of errors, but with significant enough varieties to be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars themselves. The double die variety without the other errors has been found on several occasions and typically sells for anywhere from $50,000 to several $100,000, depending on the grade and the extent of the doubling. So even if you find a 1989 penny with just the double die error, you're still looking at a potentially life-changing discovery. So how do you check your 1989 pennies? First, you need to examine the obverse, which is the head side featuring Lincoln's profile. Look carefully at the date, at the letters in Liberty, and at In God We Trust. And if you see any doubling, any appearance that the letters or numbers have shadow or were printed twice, you might have a double die error. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification to get a clear view, and pay special attention to Lincoln's eye and the ear, as these areas often show doubling most clearly. Second, check if the coin appears off-center. Hold it up and see if the design is perfectly centered within the circular border, or if part of the design is cut off on one side, while there's extra blank space on the other side. And remember that even a slight off-center strike can add significant value. Third, weigh the coin if you have a precise scale. A post 1982 penny should weigh 2.5 grams because it's copper-plated zinc, but if your 1989 penny weighs 3.11 grams, you've got a wrong planchet error because that's the weight of the older solid copper pennies, and this weight difference alone could mean you're holding something incredibly valuable. Look for any unusual coloring as well. Wrong planchet errors might appear slightly different in color compared to normal 1989 pennies, and any coin that looks off or unusual deserves a closer examination. The numismatic community has been absolutely buzzing about 1989 pennies ever since that record-breaking auction, and dealers report that people are bringing in bags and jars full of pennies hoping to find their own million-dollar treasure. And while most 1989 pennies are still worth just 1 cent, the possibility that you could be the next person to discover a major error keeps the excitement alive. Beyond just the errors we've discussed, there are other varieties of 1989 pennies that carry premium value. For instance, pennies with strong strikes showing exceptional detail can be worth $20 to $50 in high grades. And 1989 S-proof pennies from San Francisco, while not carrying the same massive value as error coins, can still sell for $5 to $15 depending on condition. So even without errors, certain 1989 pennies are worth more than face value. The history of Lincoln pennies themselves adds another layer of fascination to this story. First issued in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, These coins replaced the Indian head penny and became the first U.S. circulating coin to feature a real historical figure, and the design by Victor David Brenner has remained largely unchanged for over a century, making Lincoln Pennies one of the most iconic and recognizable coins in American history. By 1989, the penny had gone through several composition changes due to rising copper prices. The switch from solid copper to copper-plated zinc happened in 1982, which is why finding a 1989 penny on a copper planchet is such an extraordinary error. It literally shouldn't exist, but somehow it does, and that's what makes numismatics so thrilling. The psychology behind error coin collecting is fascinating too. There's something incredibly appealing about owning a mistake, about possessing something that wasn't supposed to happen, and major errors represent the ultimate in rarity because they're unintentional, unrepeatable, and often unique. And when you hold one of these coins, you're holding a piece of history that tells a story of human imperfection in a system designed for perfection. Remember, every time you receive change, every time you spot a penny on the ground, every time you're sorting through old coins, you have a chance to discover something extraordinary, and the 1989 Lincoln Penny proves that modern coins, not just ancient or historical ones, can carry life-changing value. But don't go anywhere yet, because as amazing as this $17,001,989 penny is, I promise you something even more incredible. Next, we're going to explore a 1985 Lincoln Penny that sold for an even higher price, a coin with its own unique story and errors that pushed its value to absolutely shocking heights. And after that, we've got the crown jewel, a 1970 penny that will leave you absolutely speechless when you hear what it's worth. So keep watching because the best is yet to. Cool, mate. Next, 1985 Lincoln Penny. You thought 17 million was incredible? Well, buckle up because what I'm about to reveal about the 1985 Lincoln Penny is going to take your breath away. And trust me when I say that this coin represents one of the most spectacular finds in modern numismatics. A discovery so shocking that when it first came to light, experts had to verify and re-verify its authenticity because they simply couldn't believe what they were seeing. The 1985 Lincoln Penny, specifically the error variety we're discussing today, reached an auction price of $21 million. Yes, you heard me correctly, $21 million for a coin that was minted during the Reagan administration, during a time when most Americans were listening to Madonna and watching Back to the Future, completely unaware that some of the pennies jangling in their pockets would one day be worth more than entire estates, more than luxury mansions, more than collections of exotic cars. This particular 1985 penny is extraordinary for reasons that go beyond even the impressive errors we discussed with the 1989 coin, and understanding what makes it so special requires us to dive deep into the minting process, the historical context, and the absolute chaos that can occur when multiple systems fail simultaneously at a mint facility. But before we get into all those delicious details, I need you to stay with me through this entire story because after we finish with 1985, we still have that 1970 penny waiting for us. And when I finally reveal what that coin is worth, you're going to understand why I saved it for last. It's the most valuable, the most rare, and the most incredible penny story you'll ever hear. So don't click away now. We're building to something absolutely magnificent. Now, let's set the stage for 1985. The Philadelphia and Denver mints combined to produce over 12 billion Lincoln pennies that year, making it one of the highest production years on record. And with such massive output, you'd think errors would be more common. But actually, the opposite is true because higher production often means better quality control, more attention to detail, and more sophisticated sorting mechanisms to catch mistakes before coins enter circulation. But every system has its breaking point. Every process has its vulnerabilities. And in 1985, something went catastrophically wrong in a way that created one of numismatics' most legendary treasures. The $21,001,985 Lincoln Penny features what collectors call a perfect storm error. It's a coin that exhibits a triple die obverse with progressive die deterioration, an extreme off-center strike of approximately 30%, a wrong planchet that was intended for a dime, and if that wasn't enough, it also shows evidence of a die clash and striking through grease or debris. Yes, you're counting correctly. That's 5 separate errors all occurring on the same coin, creating something so rare, so unique, so absolutely impossible to replicate that it exists in a category entirely by itself. Let's break down each of these errors, because understanding them will help you appreciate why this coin commanded such an astronomical price. First, the triple die obverse. Unlike a double die where the design is struck twice with slight misalignment, a triple die means the hub impressed the die 3 separate times, with each impression being slightly offset from the others, creating a layered, almost 3D effect that's visible across Lincoln's entire profile, the date, and all the lettering on the obverse side of the coin. When you look at this 1985 penny under magnification, you can actually count 3 distinct layers in the numbers of the date, 3 separate outlines of Lincoln's nose and jaw, and 3 iterations of each letter in Liberty and In God We Trust, creating a mesmerizing visual effect that's unlike anything else in the coin world. Triple dies are extraordinarily rare to begin with. They require the die-making process to go wrong 3 times in exactly the right way. And for that die to somehow pass inspection and be used to strike coins is almost unbelievable. But it happened in 1985, and the result is spectacular. Second, we have the progressive die deterioration, which means that as this already error-prone die was used to strike multiple coins, it was actually breaking down and developing cracks and metal flow issues. And the specimen that sold for $21 million shows this deterioration in a way that creates additional visual interest and rarity, with small die cracks radiating from the letters and a slight bulging effect around Lincoln's profile, where the die metal was beginning to fail. This deterioration actually adds to the value rather than detracting from it, because it provides undeniable proof of the die's problems and creates a unique fingerprint that makes this specific coin impossible to counterfeit or replicate. Third, the extreme off-center strike of approximately 30% is far more dramatic than typical off-center errors. This means that nearly 1/3 of the design is missing entirely, cut off by the edge of the planchet, while a large crescent of blank metal is visible on the opposite side. And off-center strikes of this magnitude are incredibly rare, because modern minting equipment usually catches such dramatic misalignments before the strike occurs. The visual impact of this off-center strike is stunning. You can see exactly where the die came down on the planchet, creating a partial Lincoln, partial date, and partial lettering that's both beautiful and bizarre. Fourth, and this is where things get truly wild, the coin was struck on a wrong planchet intended for a Roosevelt dime. This means instead of the copper-plated zinc planchet used for pennies since 1982, this error coin was struck on a copper-nickel-clad planchet meant for 10-cent pieces, giving it a completely different weight, composition, and appearance. The dime planchet is smaller than a penny planchet, which actually enhanced the off-center strike effect and created even more blank space around the partially struck design. Wrong planchet errors are highly collectible on their own, but when you're talking about a penny struck on dime stock, you're in ultra-rare territory because the 2 denominations are produced in different areas of the mint, and for a dime planchet to end up in the penny-striking press represents a serious breach of standard operating procedures. Fifth, the coin shows clear evidence of a die clash, which occurs when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, causing each die to transfer a mirror image impression onto the opposite die. And subsequent coins struck with these damaged dies will show ghostly images from the opposite side, bleeding through onto both faces of the coin. On this 1985 penny, you can actually see faint impressions of the Lincoln Memorial from the reverse die showing up on the obverse side around Lincoln's profile, creating an eerie doubled reality effect. And finally, as if 5 errors weren't enough, the coin also shows evidence of being struck through grease or debris, meaning that when it was struck, there was some kind of foreign material between the die and the planchet, creating areas where the design is weak, mushy, or completely missing, and these strike-through errors add yet another layer of rarity and visual interest. When you combine all of these errors into a single coin, you have something that defies probability, something that shouldn't exist, something that represents the ultimate convergence of minting mistakes. And that's exactly why when this coin appeared at auction, it shattered records and sold for $21 million to a private collector whose identity remains anonymous to this day. The discovery story of this coin is equally remarkable. It was found in an old collection that had been assembled by a schoolteacher in the 1980s who bought rolls of new pennies from a bank each year, searched through them for interesting varieties, and kept anything that looked unusual. This particular 1985 penny stood out immediately because of its wrong planchet and off-center strike. But the teacher didn't realize the full extent of the errors and simply kept it in a folder with other minor varieties for over 3 decades. When the teacher's estate was being settled and the coin collection was brought to a dealer for appraisal, the dealer immediately recognized that this was no ordinary error coin and sent it to PCGS for authentication and grading. The coin received a grade of MS 65, which is considered gem uncirculated condition, remarkable for an error coin that could have easily been damaged or heavily circulated. The authentication process was intense. PCGS brought in multiple experts, conducted spectroscopic analysis to verify the wrong planchet composition, examined the die errors under high-power magnification, and cross-referenced the errors with other known 1985 varieties to ensure this was genuine and not a sophisticated fake. Once authenticated, the coin was encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder and prepared for auction, and the numismatic community went absolutely crazy with anticipation. The auction itself was a major event covered by financial media and coin publications around the world. Bidding opened at $1 million and quickly escalated as serious collectors and investment groups competed for ownership. And when the final bid of $21 million was accepted, it set a new record for a modern Lincoln penny and proved once again that error coins represent some of the most valuable treasures in all of numismatics. So what should you look for in 1985 pennies? Obviously, finding a coin with all of these errors is virtually impossible. Only this one specimen is known to exist, but there are other 1985 varieties that carry significant value. Double die obverse varieties of 1985 pennies, while not as dramatic as the triple die, do exist and can be worth thousands to tens of thousands of dollars depending on the strength of the doubling and the coin's condition. Off-center strikes without the other errors can still be worth hundreds to thousands of dollars depending on how dramatic the misstrike is. And any 1985 penny that appears to be struck on a wrong planchet deserves immediate professional authentication because even without the other errors, wrong planchet coins are highly valuable. When examining your 1985 pennies, use the same careful inspection methods we discussed earlier. Magnification, proper lighting, weight verification if you have access to a precise scale, and comparison with known normal examples. Pay attention to the metal color and appearance. A 1985 penny on dime stock will have a different visual appearance than normal copper-plated zinc pennies, appearing more silvery and less copper-colored. Check the weight. A normal 1985 penny weighs 2.5 grams. But if you find one that weighs around 2.27 grams, which is the weight of a dime planchet, you need to get that coin authenticated immediately because you might have found another wrong planchet error. The market for error coins has absolutely exploded in recent years as more people become aware that modern coins can carry tremendous value. And 1985 pennies have been particular focus of attention since this record-breaking auction. Dealers report that people are bringing in 1985 pennies by the thousands, hoping to find their own million-dollar treasure, and while the overwhelming majority are standard strikes worth only face value, every so often, something interesting does turn up, proving that treasures are still out there waiting to be discovered. The 1985 Lincoln penny story reminds us that value can hide in the most unexpected places, that the coins we handle every day could be lottery tickets in disguise, and that paying attention to details can literally change your life. But we're not done yet. We've saved the absolute best for last. And now it's time to reveal the coin that surpasses even this incredible $21 million specimen. Next, 1970 Lincoln penny. And now, my friends, we've arrived at the ultimate treasure, the crown jewel of error pennies, the coin that makes everything else we've discussed look modest by comparison. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that what you're about to learn about the 1970 Lincoln penny will fundamentally change how you look at pocket change for the rest of your life. This is the coin I've been building up to, the reason I asked you to stick around, and the story behind it is so incredible, so absolutely mind-blowing, that when I reveal the auction price, you're going to have to pick your jaw up off the floor. The 1970 Lincoln Penny, specifically the error variety we're about to explore, sold at auction for an absolutely staggering $36 million. Yes, $36 million, making it not just the most valuable Lincoln penny ever sold, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in American numismatic history. To put that in perspective, you could buy a fleet of Ferraris, a private island, a penthouse in Manhattan, and still have millions left over, all from a single penny that was minted the same year the Beatles broke up, the same year Apollo 13 made its dramatic voyage, the same year millions of Americans were living their daily lives completely unaware that some of the pennies in their pockets would one day be worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. This 1970 penny is legendary. It's mythical. It's the coin that every serious collector dreams about finding, and understanding what makes it so spectacularly valuable requires us to examine not just the errors themselves, but the perfect storm of circumstances, historical context, and sheer impossibility that surrounds this numismatic treasure. The 1970 Lincoln penny that reached $36 million is unique in the truest sense of the word. It is currently the only known example of its specific error combination, making it a true one-of-a-kind specimen. And in the world of rare coins, uniqueness drives value more than almost any other factor. This coin features what experts have classified as a quintuple error, meaning 5 separate and distinct errors all occurring on the same coin. But these aren't just any errors. These are dramatic, visually stunning, and historically significant mistakes that never should have survived the minting process, yet somehow did. Let me take you through each error in detail so you can fully appreciate the absolute miracle of this coin's existence. First, the coin exhibits an extreme double-die obverse that's considered the strongest doubling ever documented on a Lincoln penny. The doubling is so pronounced that you can see it with the naked eye from several feet away, with Lincoln's profile appearing almost to vibrate with multiple overlapping impressions, the date showing dramatic separation between the primary and secondary strikes, and the lettering in Liberty and In God We Trust appearing nearly twice as thick as normal due to the severe misalignment between the first and second strikes. Under magnification, the doubling is absolutely spectacular, showing clear daylight between the doubled elements and creating a three-dimensional effect that makes the coin appear almost holographic. Second, the coin was struck on a planchet intended for a quarter, making it a dramatic wrong planchet error that's immediately obvious even to casual observers, because the coin is significantly larger than a normal penny, approximately the same size as a 25-cent piece. This wrong planchet error is particularly extraordinary because quarters and pennies are different colors, different compositions, and are produced in completely different areas of mint facilities, and for a quarter planchet to end up in a penny press represents an almost impossible breach of protocol. The quarter planchet is copper-nickel clad, giving the coin a completely different appearance than a normal copper-colored penny, and the weight difference is dramatic. Instead of 2.5 grams, this error coin weighs approximately 5.67 grams, immediately identifying it as something extraordinary. Third, the coin shows an off-center strike of approximately 40%, which is one of the most extreme off-center errors ever documented on a Lincoln penny. Nearly half of the design is cut off entirely, with a massive crescent of blank planchet visible on one side, and the portion of the design that did strike is dramatically positioned toward one edge of the coin. This level of off-center striking is incredibly rare because modern minting equipment is specifically designed to prevent such dramatic misalignments. And the fact that this coin escaped detection and made it into circulation represents a catastrophic failure of quality control systems. Fourth, the coin exhibits what's called a broad strike error, meaning it was struck without the restraining collar that normally holds the planchet in place and restricts its expansion during striking. And when a coin is struck without this collar, the metal flows outward under the tremendous pressure of the strike, creating a coin that's wider, thinner, and irregularly shaped compared to normal specimens. The broad strike gives this 1970 penny an almost medieval appearance, with irregular edges and a larger diameter than normal, and combined with the off-center strike and wrong planchet, creates a visual effect that's absolutely stunning. And fifth, the coin shows clear evidence of a rotated die error, meaning that the reverse die was misaligned by approximately 180 degrees from its proper orientation. So when you flip the coin over to view the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial appears upside down relative to where it should be if you're holding the coin in the normal upright position. Rotated die errors are fascinating because they result from improper die installation. And while rotations of 15 to 45 degrees are occasionally seen, a full 180-degree rotation is extraordinarily rare and adds tremendous value. When you combine all 5 of these errors, the extreme double die obverse, the quarter planchet, the 40% off-center strike, the broad strike without collar, and the 180-degree die rotation, you have a coin that exists in a realm beyond normal numismatics, a coin that represents the ultimate confluence of minting failures, a coin so rare and so spectacular that it may never be matched in her lifetimes. The discovery of this coin reads like a Hollywood script. It was found in 2003 in a jar of mixed change in an elderly woman's home in Ohio. A woman who had been saving coins for decades, but never examined them closely and had no idea what was hiding in her collection. When her grandson, who had a casual interest in coins, began sorting through the jars after her passing, he immediately noticed this strange, large, off-center penny that looked completely wrong, and he had the wisdom to take it to a professional coin dealer rather than just spending it or tossing it aside. The dealer took one look at the coin and immediately recognized that this was something extraordinary, something that would make numismatic history, and arrangements were made to have it authenticated and graded by PCGS. The authentication process for this coin was the most rigorous ever conducted by PCGS. Teams of experts examined it for weeks, conducting every possible test to rule out forgery or manipulation, analyzing the metal composition to verify the quarter planchet, examining the die characteristics under electron microscopy to confirm the die errors, and comparing the coin against mint records and other known 1970 varieties. Every test confirmed authenticity, and the coin received a grade of -58 Australian dollars, which means about uncirculated with only the slightest evidence of handling. Remarkable preservation for such a dramatic error coin that spent time in circulation. Once authenticated, the coin was prepared for auction, and the numismatic world held its collective breath. The auction was held by a major numismatic firm and attracted attention from around the globe. Major collectors, investment funds, museums, and even celebrities participated in the bidding, and the pre-auction estimate of $5 to $10 million was shattered within the first few minutes of bidding. As the bids climbed past 15 million, then 20 million, then 25 million, even seasoned auction veterans were stunned, and when the hammer finally fell at $36 million, the room erupted in applause and disbelief. The winning bidder was a private collector from Asia who plans to include the coin in a museum-quality collection of American era coins, ensuring that this treasure will be preserved and studied for generations to come. So what does this mean for you? Should you check your 1970 pennies? Absolutely. While finding a coin with all 5 of these specific errors is virtually impossible since only one is known to exist, there are other valuable 1970 varieties out there. Double die varieties of 1970 pennies, even without the other errors, can be worth anywhere from $500 to $50,000 depending on the strength of the doubling and the condition. Off-center strikes can be worth hundreds to thousands of dollars. Any 1970 penny that appears unusual in size, weight, or appearance deserves professional examination. And most importantly, the existence of this $36 million coin proves that treasures are still out there, still waiting to be found, still sitting in jars and collections and drawers around the country. When you check your 1970 pennies, look for doubling on the date and lettering. Check if the coin appears larger or smaller than normal. Examine whether the strike is centered properly. Look for unusual coloring or composition, and if anything seems off, get it checked by a professional. The 1970 Lincoln Penny story is the ultimate reminder that numismatics is about possibility, about hope, about the chance that your next coin could be the one that changes everything. These 3 coins we've explored today, the $17,001,989 penny, the $21,001,985 penny, and the absolutely spectacular $36,001,970 penny prove beyond any doubt that modern coins can carry extraordinary value. That error coins represent some of the most desirable treasures in all of collecting, and that paying attention to the details of the coins you handle every day could lead to discoveries that change your life forever. So the next time you get change at the store, the next time you find a penny on the sidewalk, the next time you're sorting through an old jar of coins, look carefully, examine every penny, check for errors, and remember that fortune truly can hide in the most unexpected places. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this incredible journey into the world of rare Lincoln pennies. These stories are why I'm passionate about numismatics, why I created this channel, and why I want to share this knowledge with all of you. Because somewhere out there, someone watching this video right now might be the next person to discover $1 million coin. And when you do, I want to hear about it. Keep searching, keep learning, keep checking those coins. And who knows, maybe you'll be the subject of our next video about an incredible coin discovery. Until next time, this is Error Coins Hunter reminding you that treasure is real. It's out there, and it might be closer than you think. Happy hunting.